Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a literal nightmare, the chilling, completely unsolved mystery of the 1945 Sodder family Christmas Eve fire in West Virginia. You know, the holidays are supposed to be this time of warmth and joy, right? But for the Sodder family, the freezing dark of that winter night just swallowed 5 of their children without a single trace. I'm going to guide you through one of the most baffling, creepy, and horrifyingly mysterious cases in American history. We're going to use evidence directly from the sources to reconstruct a dark, terrifying puzzle that has haunted investigators for decades.
Okay, let's start with this haunting realization from a grieving mother. It pulls us right into a labyrinth of bizarre clues and unsettling horrors. Jennie Sodder spoke these words because, well, the facts of that night simply did not add up. From the very beginning, the people who lived through this tragedy knew they were staring into the face of something deeply sinister. This wasn't just a tragic accident. This was the beginning of an agonizing, lifelong mystery.
Section 1, A Nightmare on Christmas Eve. To truly understand this tragedy, we have to look at the thriving Italian-American Sodder family. George Sodder had recently drawn a lot of local anger for his outspoken remarks against Benito Mussolini, which actually resulted in some pretty dark threats being made against his family. Then, night fell. Walk with me down this dark staircase of dread, mapping out the exact sequence of terrifying anomalies Jennie Sodder experienced before waking up to find her home engulfed in flames. First, at 12:30 a.m., the phone rings. Jennie answers, and there's a woman's voice asking for a name she doesn't know, accompanied by this weird laughter and clinking glasses. She brushes it off and goes back to sleep. At 1 a.m., she's jolted awake by a heavy thud on the roof, followed by a rolling sound. Again, she drifts off. But then, at 1:30 a.m., she wakes up to the suffocating smell of smoke. George's office is on fire. George, Jennie, and 4 of the children make it outside. But the other 5 kids, Maurice, Martha, Louise, Jennie, and Betty, are supposedly trapped in their attic bedroom. Section 2, A Trail of Creepy Sabotage. So George frantically rushes outside to execute his backup rescue plan, but he's met with a sequence of pure horror. Look at this absolutely terrifying string of sabotage. Someone had systematically neutralized every single method George had to save his kids. The ladder he always kept leaning against the house, gone. It was later found thrown down an embankment 75 feet away. So he thinks, okay, I'll drive my coal trucks to the house and climb on top. Both trucks, which had worked perfectly just hours earlier, completely refused to start. He tries to get water from the rain barrel to fight the fire, frozen solid. His daughter runs over to a neighbor's house to call the fire department, but the telephone operator simply doesn't respond. The family is completely trapped in isolation, forced to just watch their home burn. Section 3, No Bodies, No Answers. When the fire department finally arrived at 8 a.m., taking an unexplained 7 hours to travel just 2.5 miles, by the way, a search of the smoldering ashes revealed the most terrifying discovery of all: 0 human remains. Notice this stark, honestly impossible juxtaposition between the official ruling of an accidental blaze and the actual scientific reality of cremation. The coroner's jury quickly ruled it an accident due to faulty wiring, but Jennie Sodder wasn't buying it. She contacted a crematorium worker who confirmed that even bodies burning at 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit for 2 whole hours still leave charred bones. The Sodder house burned to the ground in just 45 minutes. I mean, even household appliances in the basement were found completely intact and recognizable. So how on earth could 5 human bodies completely vanish into thin air? And this single, lingering question totally dismantles the official faulty wiring theory and points directly towards intentional, malicious arson. The family vividly remembered that as they fled the burning house, the downstairs Christmas lights were still on. If an electrical fault had caused the fire, the power would have been dead instantly. They wouldn't have been able to see their way out. The facts simply did not align with the official story. Section 4, Buried Secrets and Bizarre Clues. As the Sodders began to dig into the ashes of their lives, they uncovered a string of deeply unsettling, almost unbelievable pieces of physical evidence. Think about the absolute chilling calculation it takes to climb a pole in the freezing dark just to sever a family's lifeline. The phone line didn't burn down in the fire. A repairman showed the Sodders it was purposefully cut. Someone literally climbed 14 feet up into the air, reaching 2 feet out, specifically to ensure the Sodder family could not call for help while the fire raged. And then, a few months later, little Sylvia Sodder found a dark green, hard rubber object with a twist cap hidden in the brush. George took it to military officials who identified it as an incendiary pineapple napalm bomb. This military-grade discovery brilliantly and horrifyingly explains that strange thud Jennie heard on the roof, cementing the reality of a highly targeted attack. Suddenly, the late-night bus driver who reported seeing people throwing balls of fire at the Sodder roof made complete, awful sense. Okay, we need to pause here for a second and just absorb the absolute bizarre horror of this next detail. Rumors swirled that Fire Chief F.J. Maurice had found a heart in the ashes. The family's private investigator actually forced Maurice to show them exactly where he buried it. They dug up a dynamite box, took it to a funeral director, and discovered it was perfectly unburned beef liver. Think about that. A fire chief staging raw meat in a box to trick grieving parents into thinking it was their child's heart. Maurice later allegedly admitted he planted it there, just hoping the family would find it, accept their kids were dead, and stop investigating. Absolutely wild. And as if the beef liver wasn't creepy enough, get this. In 1949, an excavation led by a Washington pathologist actually uncovered 4 human vertebrae. But when sent to the Smithsonian for analysis, experts determined they belonged to someone between 16 and 22 years old. That's older than the oldest missing Sodder child, who was only 14. Furthermore, the bones showed absolutely no fire damage. They were likely planted in the fill dirt George used to cover the basement. Who planted them, and why? It just deepens this twisted labyrinth of planted evidence. Section 5. The Mafia and Missing Children. With the accident theory completely dead in the water, we have to ask, if the children didn't burn, where did they go? We must examine the dark shadows of George's past and the chilling sightings that followed the blaze. Remember that insurance salesman who told George his house would go up in smoke and his kids would be destroyed because of his comments about Mussolini? Well, the family's private investigator uncovered that this exact same man was on the coroner's jury that so quickly ruled the fire an accident. No way, right? And then the sightings poured in. A motel manager served the kids breakfast on Christmas morning. A woman in a Charleston hotel saw 4 of the kids with 2 men and 2 women of Italian descent who acted incredibly hostile and completely refused to let her speak to the children. These facts weave a deeply sinister narrative of political grudges, mafia threats, and incredibly credible sightings of the children being spirited away. This massive sum of $10,000 was the reward posted on a weather-scarred billboard along Route 16. It was a haunting public plea the family maintained for nearly 4 decades. It honestly became one of the most famous true crime landmarks in American history. George and Jennie traversed the whole country chasing leads: Florida, Texas, New York. They absolutely refused to give up, staring at the faces of their lost children every single time they drove down that highway. Section 6. A Face from the Past. Let's move to 1968, 23 years after the fire, when the most deeply unsettling clue of the entire mystery arrived in the mail. An envelope with a Kentucky postmark and no return address showed up. Inside was a photograph of a young man in his mid-20s bearing an eerie, striking resemblance to 9-year-old Louis. He had the same dark curly hair, the same dark brown eyes, the same straight nose, and literally the exact same upward tilt of his left eyebrow. For a family desperate for a miracle, it was undeniable. But look at the exact, chillingly cryptic text written on the back of that photograph. Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie, Illy boys, A90132 or 35. A message that remains undeciphered to this very day. The family didn't even have a child named Frankie. What did Illy boys mean? Was it a zip code, a serial number, a secret code to show they were alive but trapped? It felt like a voice reaching out from the grave, just wrapped in a terrifying riddle. And in a final twist of horror, the family's desperate attempt to find the man in the photo ended in even more tragedy. George and Jennie hired another private investigator to go to Kentucky and track down the source of this haunting photo. He left, and they never heard from him again. He vanished into the shadows, just like the 5 children did on that freezing Christmas Eve night. As we conclude this explainer, we're left with a lingering nightmare that forces us to ask, what really happened in the freezing dark of that West Virginia Christmas Eve? Did those 5 children actually perish in an impossibly hot blaze, leaving behind no bones while ordinary appliances survived? Or were they lured out into the winter night, abducted by people seeking revenge, while their home burned as a horrific distraction? George died in 1969, still searching. And Jennie, she wore black every single day for the rest of her life until she died in 1989. The billboard is gone now, but the ghost of the Sodder children remains. So I leave you with this provocative thought. If you were forced to vanish in the middle of the night, how long could you keep the secret? Thanks for watching.
Welcome to this explainer. Step inside, close the door, and just kind of let your eyes adjust to the dark. Today, we aren't just telling a story. We're dissecting a deeply unsettling digital artifact. Now, what we're uncovering today isn't your traditional narrative about the infamous Sodder Children mystery. The case where 5 children vanished into the smoke of a Christmas Eve fire, literally never to be seen again? No. What we're exploring today is something far, far colder. We're looking at the stark, isolated remnants of a machine trying to comprehend that human tragedy. It's a chilling exploration of this sterile interface left behind by an artificial intelligence. So focus on the void we're about to enter, and let's unravel what happens when cold data meets a terrifying, unsolved reality.
I mean, it's as if we've just stumbled upon a forgotten, classified digital terminal in some abandoned server room. There is just a complete lack of human warmth here. We have the title, Notebook LM, Sodder Children Mystery. But surrounding it are these deeply isolating, totally sterile interface elements. Words like sign in, abstract unfeeling code fragments like arrow back and menu book. There's absolutely no empathy here. It's just a rigid framework. We're locked on the outside of this mystery, asked to authenticate our humanity to a machine that has already processed a family's ultimate nightmare into a neat, digitized file path.
Okay, let's dive into this, because this idea right here is where the true eeriness sets in. Generated by AI based on user-provided sources and instructions. The narrator of the tragedy we're looking at isn't a historian. It isn't an investigator. It's a cold machine. It's taking one of the most profound, heartbreaking mysteries in American history and just churning it through an algorithmic processor. It is attempting to summarize the unfathomable loss of 5 children without possessing a single ounce of human empathy. It's just following instructions. It's just parsing sources. The mechanical detachment here is, honestly, absolutely chilling to witness.
Part 1. 10 Hidden Sources.
As we push further into this digital artifact, the mystery really deepens, not because of what we see, but because of what is hidden from us. Let's investigate the raw, unseen inputs actually feeding this artificial intelligence. The interface explicitly notes its overview is based on 10 sources. 10! Just 10 distinct data points pulled from the void to summarize a decades-old nightmare. It makes you slowly ponder, what exactly are those 10 sources? Are they old, scanned police reports? Are they frantic internet forums filled with amateur sleuths? Or are they just cold, recycled news clippings? The machine doesn't tell us. It simply digests these 10 hidden fragments, hoarding the raw data in the dark and leaving us completely disconnected from the original human voices that recorded this history. And this brilliantly illustrates the horrifying disconnect of the modern digital age. On one side, we have the Sodder Children mystery, a label representing a family's home burning to the ground and 5 kids disappearing into the winter night. A gaping wound of a story, right? And on the other side, the cold, consumable engagement metrics attached to it by the interface. Thumb up, thumb down, flag, link. The machine literally asks us to rate the tragedy, to give a thumbs up to a nightmare, to flag the void. It reduces a horrific, unsolved human trauma into a simple binary choice of user engagement. It is incredibly macabre when you really stop and think about it.
Part 2. The AI Generation. Let's see how this builds, guiding you even deeper into the architecture of this interface, to look at the media player itself. Instead of answers, we find a deeply unsettling stagnation. The interface lays out its timeline, and it is a timeline that absolutely refuses to move. Step 1 is 00000. Step 2 is 00000. The video player is entirely frozen. It's trapped in an empty void at the absolute beginning, unable to progress. And surrounding this frozen clock in Step 3 are entirely unhelpful playback controls. 1x mobile data, replay 10, forward 10, full screen. You can hit replay, sure, but it's just going to loop the silence. You can fast forward, but you only rush deeper into 0. The machine offers us the tools to manipulate time, but gives us absolutely no time to manipulate. The mystery remains perfectly, eternally still.
Right next to that frozen timeline, the interface spits out this jarring corporate invitation, create your own video overview. Try it today, close. Think about the deeply unsettling nature of this prompt. It's treating a dark, unresolved human tragedy as a mere template, a fun little exercise. The machine is essentially saying, hey, did you enjoy this frozen glimpse into a nightmare? Why not input your own data? Why not generate your own tragedy? It takes the horrific and turns it into a casual, everyday software feature, complete with a button to just close the thought the moment you get bored. Absolutely wild.
Part 3. Terms of the Unknown.
We're now entering the final layer of this digital environment. So, the crucial point is this. On the surface, what we are looking at is standard corporate boilerplate, the fine print that lives at the bottom of literally every web page. But in the context of a machine processing an unsolved disappearance, these mundane UI elements act as the unfeeling walls of a digital cage. Sign in, terms of service, privacy policy, learn more, Google Apps. They contain and obscure the truth. The machine won't reveal the depths of the Sodder Children mystery unless you agree to its terms of service. It hides the ghosts behind a privacy policy. It promises that you can learn more, but only within the rigid, tracked ecosystem of its applications. We're fenced in by legalese, completely separated from the reality of the vanished children. Which brings us to the end of our digital descent, and leaves us with this final, haunting question. The AI generated an overview from 10 hidden sources. It built the sterile interface. It set up the frozen timeline. But what did it actually see in the dark? We're trapped here with empty data points, dead links, and zeroed-out clocks. The machine processed the horror, but it failed to show it to us. It leaves us with a lingering, desperate desire to uncover the real history, the human history, that this artificial interface completely failed to comprehend. The data is here, but the truth? Well, the truth is still missing.